Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel. I am excited to talk about some of the books that I have read the past couple weeks. So let's just jump right into it for today. So this first book was a recommendation from Gemma over at Gem of Books, so I will make sure to link her channel down below. And I read the book To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. This is following our main character, Ariadne, and she is a space explorer. And she is put in stasis, goes to different planets, and sends her research back to Earth so that Earth can be better. And instead of changing these planets to make them habitable, they change these space explorers change their own bodies, their own physiology, so that they can adapt to the conditions on these different planets. And so instead of going out and colonizing space, it's all about changing Earth, changing themselves to find solutions, find answers, make things better. And so I thought it was really interesting, kind of the exploration of space, some of the ideas. I feel like I didn't quite connect as strongly to some of the characters as I would have liked. And at the end, I thought it was a little bit up in the air, and I had wished for things to be maybe finished off a little neater, but I can definitely see what the author was trying for. So overall, it was an enjoyable read. I don't know if I'm in the habit of thinking super deeply about these existential questions that are often brought up in sci-fi books. So I think it's been a little while since I've been like, oh yeah, I really connected to that. That was so important. And so I don't know if I got a ton out of it that I'm gonna remember long-term, but I thought it was really enjoyable while I read it. So overall, enjoyed this one. It was worth picking up, and it was good to just kind of pick up something a little different. If you have any good sci-fi books, let me know. What should I read next in the sci-fi genre? Now, this next book was a recommendation from Audrey over at Audrey Approved, and if you haven't checked out her channel, you really should. She always has the best nonfiction, like just really different ones that I haven't heard of before that are really interesting. So I picked up The Road to Jonestown, Jim Jones and People's Temple by Jeff Gwynne, and this was a ride. I always feel a little conflicted on books that deal with like true crime, because I feel like so many of the victims are still living, you know, their families, and are we re-traumatizing real people who have had to go through this? Like, how is it handled? How are things brought up? And I feel like this book walked that line pretty well. It was so much exploration of how something like this could come to be. I saw a lot of parallels between things that happen now, and I just thought that it was an important book. It wasn't just, oh, this is a crazy story, buckle in. It was also really important while sticking to the facts. And so this is following Jim Jones, his life, the formation of his church, down to the horrible events that caused over 900 people's deaths. So it was quite the ride. By the end, just shocking and horrifying, even though I knew where it was going to end up, and you know where it's going to end up from the first pages of the book, but really worth picking up, a really well done book, couldn't put it down, and just very interesting to see, like, what are your influences? Who are you following? Why? What kind of messages are you going to put up with? And like, I thought that those were questions that you can ask as a society. Personally, I thought that all of it was really worth picking up. So yeah, highly recommend this book if you are interested at all in the events that take place in this. This is the one to go for, because I feel like it was very expansive, like it covered all of the different events really well. Now, I believe I heard about this book the first time from my father-in-law, and I read the book Bittersweet, How Sorrow and Longing Make Us Whole by Susan Cain. And I think I'm going to end up doing another video talking about this book, but this was really interesting. I feel like there were a lot of really good ideas. So she's talking about how longing and that feeling of emptiness and feeling lonely and feeling sad, they are important parts of the human experience, and not just a time we have to endure until we can be happy again. It's what makes life full of meaning. And she talks a bit about how the focus of a lot of cultures is to avoid sadness and sorrow at all costs. And that's not what we need to do. It's okay to feel that melancholy feeling. And that's where creativity comes from. That's where empathy comes from. And that's where we can really connect and help others and really connect with others. I thought that the ideas in it were really beautiful. I enjoyed it a lot. As with most self-help books, I always question, is this going to cause me to do anything different in my life? Like, has it changed me? Because if it hasn't, why am I reading some ideas that aren't gonna actually change me, right? Because isn't that the whole purpose of the genre kind of thing? And I feel like this one maybe is on that line, but I feel like there's some things that I might take with me moving forward from this book. So overall, I really did enjoy it, and yeah, highly recommend it. Now, my husband recommended I pick up the book, The Culture Map, Breaking Through the Invisible Boundaries of Global Business by Erin Meyer. And I'm really glad that I picked this up. So this book talks about different cultures, specifically in a business setting, but it talks about different cultures and how they relate to each other and how that can cause conflict in relationships when you don't understand where people are coming from. And so the book is very good. At the beginning, it tells you right out. A lot of people like to think, oh, well, it doesn't matter where somebody's from. It doesn't matter their culture because I treat everyone as individuals. And that might sound good on paper, but really what you're doing is you end up ignoring where people are coming from and misunderstanding people. So if you can understand a general idea of where someone might be coming from, if you can understand, okay, so in France, they might be a little bit more direct with their negative feedback. That might help you when you interact with your next French person to say, okay, this is how they're approaching it, and they're not trying to be offensive, but this is how things are being approached. So I appreciated that. I can definitely see how this book would be helpful for my husband. He did a business school program that had people from all over the world, and he found this book to be very helpful, understanding so many different cultures. He also works with people from all over the world currently. And so having this book as a reference, something to look back on, can help when you start finding those areas of conflict in business. So for me personally, because I'm not in the business world right now, I found parts of it to be a little dry because I'm not looking for how to run my next board meeting. It's just not something I'm doing. But as someone who lives in a culture that they did not grow up in, I still think this book was very necessary. So I think if you work or interact with people from different cultures, this is worth picking up. Look at the charts. You don't need to read every word. Skim through. Figure out some things that can help you have better interactions and make better connections with people from different backgrounds. One of the things that I thought was really helpful was toward the end of the book, especially, the author talks about how we probably will make mistakes when trying to adapt to different cultures, and that is fine. It's all about working on it. But also, we're also going to make a lot of mistakes if we try to change ourselves too much. The best thing is to be upfront and understand the cultural differences and address them. Because if you come from a non-confrontational culture, you go to a confrontational culture and you try to be a little more confrontational, chances are you're going to do it wrong and you're going to push some buttons and offend some people because you don't know where the line is. You aren't aware. So this really was explained in an experience that I had when I first moved here. So I would go to some different meetings, meet up with some people, and I showed up 5 minutes early, like I always did in the United States, because I am a punctual person. And I show up 5 minutes early, and it was very frustrating for me to show up to meetings 5 minutes early and wait for half an hour or more before anyone shows up. I just was like, nobody respects my time. Where is everyone? And I had to start getting used to it. Okay, so here a lot of these people that I'm interacting with, they just run late. So I can also run late. So there was an activity that was from church, and I was gonna go to this activity. So I think, all right, I figured it out. I'm gonna show up half an hour late because I don't wanna be the first person there again. I don't wanna stand around and wait. And so I showed up to the activity half an hour late. And when I was there, I got told off for being late to this activity when everyone had been late to every meeting up to that point. But the problem with jumping into a new culture is I didn't understand the differences in kinds of activities, when it's appropriate to be late, when it's not. I just, from my observations, tried to jump in. So what I've had to learn, and this is what I've ended up doing, is I show up when I would feel comfortable showing up in the United States. Am I gonna be really early and wait around? Yeah. I show up early to a place and I bring a book. I show up early to a place and I go help out, but I just assume that no one will be there until half an hour or so late. And if they're on time, great, I'm on time. I haven't made any mistakes that way. No cultural faux pas here. But if I wait, it's great. So I feel like this book had so many different things like this, just ways to avoid those or understand those faux pas when they come up. And so I think it was useful. I think a lot of people could really benefit from reading this, and it might just be like one of those books that might be nice to buy and have hanging out if you are interacting with people a lot, because you notice a conflict, you could say, is this just this person, or is this something in culture that we can work through if we talk about our expectations in a more open way? And so really enjoyed, got a little bored. It took me a long time to get through because it's not like it's got a narrative or is super engaging in that way, but it was helpful and useful and well-researched. So I did enjoy this book, worth picking up. And those are all the books that I have read the past couple weeks. So if you have read any of these, let me know in the comments down below. And I should be back soon with another book wrap up, and I'm hoping to do some different forms of videos coming up soon. So if there's anything that you want me to make a video on, let me know in the comments down below, and I will see you all on the next one.